Okay, I got another thing here, just the backlog, diaries. Here's me, April 25th, which actually, April 25th, 1975, I'm at Long Island Coliseum in Nassau. Was it Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, where the Rangers, the Long Islanders, whatever they were, what they called, the Long Island, New York Islanders, whatever.
Islanders, yeah.
Yeah, on April 25th, a few days before the collapse in Vietnam, and it's the Bongo Fury tour, and Beefart's with Zappa, and I was up on stage and got to dance around up there. But after, I spent a lot of time in the Holiday Inn with Beefart, and a little Zappa, though he was busy running around, but mainly Beefart and some of the other guys. So that was 13 years before that, April 25th, 1962, in Lancaster. I see Frank somewhere on the street or something. I go, Frank, how's the greeting card business over in Claremont? And Zappa says, it's not music, but I got a hunch that what I'm learning about business, especially advertising, is going to help me be a better composer. I think that's relevant to what we're talking about. He's going to be a better composer, not because he hates business and, he's into the non-commercial grant world or something, just because he can't handle business. He's in the middle of life. And he says, what I'm learning about advertising is going to be making me a better composer. Then I say, do you think Don Vliet will learn as much in the shoe business? Zappa laughed and turned on his tape recorder. So he taped this part. I said, I met a genius the other day over in Cucamonga. He goes, oh? I said, yeah, his name is Paul Buff, and he has this amazing studio. It has the most advanced recording equipment I've ever seen, out here in the sticks, no less. I told him about you and Don. He says, you're welcome to visit and look it over any time. Zappa says, give me his address, and I'll go over tonight. Sure, but if you keep that tape recorder running, you're going to owe me millions.
It's like Bob's the man from the future that comes to give him a tip.
That's right, yeah. I hadn't thought of that, but I probably did think of it one time somewhere 15 years ago. So here is the next diary entry, July 7th, 62, back in Paris. My father says, Bob, it's beginning to look like the Vatican's philosopher, Aquinas, the angelic doctor, might have the last laugh. This is certainly what your friend and cutout McLuhan has placed his bets on. His use of Aquinas' own word medium is very clever, the word medium in quotes. Even though the committee assigned you the job of monitoring him, he may prove extremely helpful in my plans for you. Although the committee will have to drop him eventually, I don't want you to lose touch with him and those of his colleagues who have a good understanding of him. And I never didn't do that. I never dropped that assignment. I'm still in touch with the new colleagues of McLuhan.
Yeah.
Okay, I for some reason I wanted to read that. Anyways, back to, I really like the way this is going, what we're talking about. I mean, you said a really good bunch of stuff, Chad, and Scott was dumbfounded, didn't know what to say, but I think I came up with a way of expanding what you were saying.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah, look at the way he's working with the sensory modalities. He may not be doing it totally methodically, analytically, consciously like McLuhan. You know what I mean? But he's intuiting the same process, and that play, God Lies, is incredible because he wants to have a whole array of everything going on in the fucking thing. He's not limiting the opera to the opera house. Matter of fact, I'd love you to read it again.
Dio Fa, you mean?
Yeah. Does anybody get a problem with that?
Good by me.
Okay.
Yeah, and what we base on what we said, let's think about it again.
Okay. Frank Zappa would have proposed to write, produce, and direct a special entertainment event for the conclusion of the World Cup football finals in the summer of 1990, to be financed by the city of Milan and the Italian Football Committee. It would have been an opera with the premiere performance in La Scala, broadcast via satellite worldwide. The idea was to produce a script in English, Italian, German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian. The performance would include dancing in many styles, special effects, and a fashion show. The musical accompaniment would include full orchestral...
Hey, Ched. Fashion show. They wonder why I got Jermaine on there, on the show.
Yeah. There you go.
Look at what he's got there. It's incredible. Yeah, it's right to cite the 2008 Chinese Olympics.
Yeah.
Okay, just go back a bit.
So, no, he was looking forward to the 2008 Chinese Olympic ceremony, basically.
Yeah, when Ion starts showing up.
Yeah.
So what? Go back a few words just to get.
Okay. Just I'll reread the last part there. The performance would include dancing in many styles, special effects, and a fashion show. The musical accompaniment would include full orchestral strings, chamber music settings, ethnic choral and instrumental setting, executed via digital sampling and digital tape playback, advanced electronic music techniques, and rock music in styles ranging from doo-wop vocals to heavy metal.
See, everything. He's got everything there.
Yeah.
The radio environment.
Yeah. The music would be partly acoustic, partly amplified, and in some instances, mimed to digital playback. Now, wait a minute. What does that mean, mimed to digital playback?
The digital would be providing the music, and the mimes would be responding to it somehow, interpreting it. But those are three phases there. Do that. What are the three phases there?
Partly acoustic, partly amplified, and in some instances, mimed to digital playback. So he's got acoustic, meaning unplugged. He's got amplified, and then he's got digital.
Yeah, he's got pre-electric, way back. Then he's got analog. Then he's got digital. So the question is, phase 3 is the digital android meme. Is he stuck in that, or is he pointing to the resolution, the fourth level, which is Zion Doom? You know what I mean? And I wanted to say that whole thing. We got to go back to World's Greatest Stranger. That's incredible. I forgot about that. It's the guy's church believes everybody's God. I mean, maybe that's a Buddhist thing or something, but it's just great in the secular West to say that. That's ironic.
Wait a minute. Look at the parallels between Dio Fa and the World's Greatest Stranger.
Yeah.
There you go.
And Zappa's like doing the virtual Android meme era, replaying World's Greatest Sinner.
Yeah.
Okay, so who dropped out?
Probably James.
Yeah.
Are you there, Chad?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So let's wait till he comes back. But just reading it, just awesome. His vision. I mean, I always think about when Michael Blake Reed, maybe I've said this before. I already said this tonight, didn't I? That when he saw so many projects in Zappa's head, and he says, why aren't you doing all this other stuff you have in your head, these other ideas? And Zappa says, it's because of my name. People don't support anything with that name, Zappa. And Michael says he told us that he then said to Frank, in the dream impression world, he said, while he was in trance, he said, well, why don't you change your name? And Frank says, that's a good idea, but just never bothered. There was a level of laziness in Frank, which doesn't mean he was, wrong. He was enjoying life. I mean, he'd only tour every 4 years or something. He just, he was too busy enjoying a lot of things and watching and learning and observing and having fun. Like he could have done all those projects, but it was no big deal if he didn't get them done.
Yeah.
Kind of a slack attitude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Real slack.
Exactly. So James is back.
All right.
Yeah, that was me.
We were just saying that there's a pretty impressive parallel here between Zappa's Dio Fa and the World's Greatest Sinner by what's his name, Carey, the one that Tim Carey that Zappa did the soundtrack for.
Yeah, and I'm thinking now that this is an expanded Android meme phase 3 version of the themes in Tim Carey's, beginning point back in the analog media phase.
Yeah. So he's working with acoustic, partly amplified, and digital. But the key word here is mimed to digital playback. So it sounds like they would have had some tracks recorded digitally, and they'd be playing the digital tracks, and then the acoustic and the amplified guys would play along with the digital. So the old phases are trying to catch up and stay in sync with the new digital.
Yeah, which you brought up hours ago about art, imitating life or something, life and art. Did you mention something? Yeah,
but this is the different phases, different stages of technological evolution.
Right. So he's got one form of entertainment, pantomime, trying to catch up with the virtual form of entertainment.
Well, no, it's the acoustic form and the amplified form. So the acoustic, which would be, like you said, the very first nature one. Then the amplified would be electric. and they're playing along with a digital recording.
Right, which is the Android meme. They're trying to take the old arts and get grants or be still functioning in a virtual matrix world that didn't care.
Right.
But I was saying, and you have a mime, a pantomime, one form of media imitating another media. That's what the mixed corporate media factor is, and they're all feeding off each other. And there's another aspect, the digital, the imitation. Okay, so the older arts are miming the ground, which is digital.
Yeah, they're miming their ground.
Yeah. And Zappa may be pointing out the ground in its later obsolete phases. He may be operating from the fourth level.
Right.
Because he's looking back at what happened during the Android meme phase.
But it's meta because he's miming the hidden ground. Yeah. Maybe he's not totally aware of it, but he's miming it using the old 3 previous stages. So the statement it makes, whether he was conscious of it or not, is that you're always, if you're trying to feel out or trace the hidden ground, you can only do it with the old ground, the old previous hidden grounds that are now.
Every new technology has the previous technologies as content.
Right, and in the McLuhan quadrant, which Zappa is part of, the middle column is triad. It's the second position, but it's triad. Dyad is in the Thompson quadrant. And triad means that you're doing it from the fourth level, the tetrad process. Just like my chart is the hexadic, actually it's the hexadic level, looking back at the Dobbs in the pentadic. So whatever monad, dyad, triad, they're positioning. So Zappa and McLuhan are operating from the fourth level.
Right.
The figure is 3ness, the triad.
Yeah.
But the ground is the tetrad level.
Tetrad, yeah. Did you want me to continue reading the description?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the music would be partly acoustic, partly amplified, and in some instances mimes to digital playback. Frank was to write the story and the lyrics, supervise the set design, costumes, and special effects. City of Milan, through its sister city arrangement with Chicago, would engage the Chicago Symphony to provide the orchestral backing.
In 1984, Namjoon Paik and a bunch of Cage kind of Fluxus people, they did the first satellite broadcast on New Year's Day. They broadcast something through satellite hookup. Namjoon Paik and some New York artists with somebody else in the other part of the world. So Frank's including that. There's the Satellite Global Theater. He's including that as a figure.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's including the La Scala chorus, which brings in the mouth, the vocal.
Yeah.
The polyvocal.
All times happening.
Yeah. Or you could say the non-physical, right? The chorus.
Oh, they could be, you mean the power of the word?
Well, remember when you were playing those old tunes from the doo-wop era, and then you've got the main lead singer, and then it goes into the chorus. The chorus is behind him singing along, and you said
the non-physical. That's right. It's the non-physical mumbling away, working away for you.
Doing your bidding, yeah.
Yeah.
So then there's always that call and response that's sort of implied between the soloist and the chorus.
And the virtual reality and the pantomime. Call and response there.
Yeah, exactly. So Frank Zappa was to select the stage director, the orchestral director, and the featured vocal soloists. A U.S. design.
Oh, that's James again.
Oh, I think Chad dropped. Are you there, James? Chad? It's just you and me, Bob.
No, I'm here.
Oh, James.
So so he'll be back.
Chad.
Yeah. Something that's not relevant to Chad you want to talk about?
What are you thinking about, James?
No, I'm just
cut off there.
Oh, he's back.
Okay, I want to say something. The analog phase, media extend our senses. The Android meme phase is when media extend themselves. I was trying to say that when I said entertainment. One kind of entertainment extends another part or is extended by the other part. the relationship between the pantomime and the digital playback is android mimic. You got different art forms feeding off each other. That's the android mimic extending itself, not our senses anymore. There's something about that that's going on. I mean, Zappa is really showing culture is our business right here.
Yeah.
In extremis.
Yeah. So
next.
What follows is not a complete description of the event, only a collection of ideas to begin with. So
that's always what it is. It's all one can do. There's a page in Counterblast where McLuhan lists off his little page, and he wrote speech, television. He wrote all the media, and he has humor as a word in there. And he's just looking at a soup of themes. That's what Zappa's been doing all his life with his fragments. Just recycling them, but then bringing in new stuff. But it's just a collection of ideas. That's all we do when we go on Ion. When we go on the show, we just got a collection of rhetorical memory theater stuff that we can rehearse.
Yeah, a collection of ideas to begin with. Yeah. All material is subject to irrational modification.
That's dealing with the unforeseen synergy of all the media interdynamics in the global theater of unforeseen events. McLuhan says in the global theater, expect the unexpected. So Frank's including that, because that's the tetrad manager's attitude. They know unpredictable things will happen. There's no order, no strict 19th century order happening from the management perspective. See it though, perfect, what he's saying here.
Except the unpredictable things that occur tend to be cliche. They're just you don't know which cliche is going to emerge next. Yeah. But as soon as it emerges, you go, oh, yeah, sure, okay, I got it.
But that's the thing. To the blind, all things come as a surprise, right?
And I was just going to say Dave Worcester, who's going blind, but Dave's line is bing, bing. That
bing, bing.
Bing, bing. That's in the Worcester dialogue. Bing, bing, cliche. Or what is it? Ian says something, and he has another one. Thrill, thrill. That's what Scott meant. Another cliche. Thrill, thrill.
Okay. So he has a cliche placeholder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the theme of the opera is millions of people believe football is God, but it is said.
Now that is really. I was talking with somebody today. Games are the only words that McLuhan puts beside extensions of man. Media, extensions of man. Games are extensions of man. Media are games. His buddy Tony Schwartz wrote Media, the book Media, the Secondhand God. McLuhan talks about how football and the tensions of sport for the average pagan person is a big deal. That's how the drama of their life is presented for them, and they get fascinated by it. Going to church, it doesn't have enough drama for the mixed corporate media world. He's talking about the effect of sport. And he doesn't point out the instant replay makes football really dominant, but he's saying, sport is a new religion.
Yeah.
It's a cultural phenomenon already happening.
Bob, as you know, I've been getting caught up in the drama that you recommended called The Wire, the HBO show.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting to me that the guys out on the streets selling the hoppers, out there pushing the coke and the heroin and so on, and killing each other over nothing, basically.
Yeah.
But they see it all as all being
a game.
They're in the game. You're either in the game or you're not.
Yeah, and that's people realizing the chemical body level of life is a game.
Yeah.
Because they're actually living in the media world, in the discarnate, television, their cell phone world is the real ground. So the body becomes a football kicked around and discarded.
Yeah, well, it's like, taking the whole idea of playing the cyber games, the Halo or the different, where you create an avatar and you set it up and you get them in the game. I mean, they seem, gosh darn, they seems like in The Wire that they literally, view themselves as in that way.
So I would walk into that scene if I was given an opportunity and point out to them that there are certain parts of the hidden ground that hypnotize them into thinking it's a game. See, they're stoned, they're zombie people. They don't see what's making them think life's a game.
Mm-hmm.
So they're stuck. The Walking Dead. You get my point? I mean, to the average, whatever, unsophisticated, they seem pretty sophisticated, and they're onto it. But what the directors don't tell you, or anybody doesn't tell you that, the characters there, they're stunned into a cynical attitude. They don't know what's made them cynical. They don't know the hidden ground has made the chemical body seem like a robot. So they are within the idea the body's a robot or a game.
Yeah.
They don't see through it.
Yeah. They set up a chain of command which puts them in the situation where if they have to sacrifice their life over a situation, there's no other choice.
Yeah. How much have you watched?
Well, I'm into the 4th season now.
That's really good. Where'd you get them from?
Blockbusters.
They have it all.
Yeah.
So do you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's increasingly been becoming more absorbed into it.
Yeah. Okay, back to the play.
Okay. So the theme of the opera is millions of people believe football is God, but it is said, at least in Torino, quote, God is a liar, or Dio Fa. To represent this theme, we propose to use a large mechanical version of the marionette character shown in the logo of the Italian Football Committee in the role of football god.
Hey, let me tell you something. In McLuhan's description of vertical and horizontal symbolism, in the horizontal view, everybody's a puppet managed by one big puppet. So you could even say it's a conspiracy view. The Illuminati everybody's a puppet. Obama's a puppet. The idea that we're all lifeless puppets run by one magical demiurge puppeteer is in the horizontal. So you're getting a bit of the horizontal traditional Gnostic view being implied in that little fragment there about puppetry. And Zappa began his career as a kid doing puppetry in school, I think.
Mm-hmm. But he's got God is a puppet here.
How does he say that?
Because the marionette is actually representing football god.
Yes. So, well, he doesn't say that. Read the sentence.
To present this, so God is a liar, Dio Fa.
Right.
To present this theme, we propose to use a large mechanical version of the marionette character shown in the logo of the Italian Football Committee in the role of football god. So I'm saying the marionette character is in the role of football god. Right.
Yeah, so the god is a puppet.
Yeah, so the god is a puppet. So he's pointing to a hidden ground.
Yeah.
So this football god marionette is afflicted with an uncontrollable nasal growth syndrome.
That's Reuben the Jets. In Uncle Meat, in 1969, he puts some injection in them and their noses grow.
Yeah.
And they become Reuben the Jets singing their hit songs, flying over the city. So that's the nasal drone mechanism, I think it's called.
Oh, this is nasal growth syndrome. So he's making a pun on that. He's alluding to his earlier work about the other nasal syndrome.
Yeah, he's updating, expanding the fragments that were in the whole project 20 years before.
Yeah.
What's he called? Nasal growth?
Nasal growth syndrome, pioneered by Pinocchio. So it's the nose growing. Yeah.
Right, but I think it's a nasal drone mechanism in the Uncle Meat booklet layout. Anyways, he's taking the cliche that when you lie, your nose grows, right? And he's making a whole world out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what he's referring to. So nasal growth syndrome, pioneered by Pinocchio and perfected by Reagan. Ronald Reagan. So whenever football god tells a lie, a horrible soft nose grows out of the soccer ball, which forms the head of the logo. So this marionette character has a soccer ball for a head, and the nose starts growing out of it whenever it tells a lie.
Right.
Yeah. And then with each new lie, another monk appears. So they have these monk characters. And they're singing.
But read the actual words. You're sort of summing it up, I think.
Well, I was bridging from the previous sentence into the new one to give it a context.
Okay.
So I'll just reread the last two sentences. Yeah. Whenever football god tells a lie, a horrible soft nose grows out of the soccer ball, which forms the head of the logo. With each new lie, another monk appears, singing in Sardinian ethnic choral style, struggling to hold up the football god's repulsive nose with inexplicable religious machinery.
Right. So he's got the industrial face, but he's got the monk from the acoustic. What is it? The unplugged phase? What's it called? Acoustic?
He calls it acoustic, but that's not analog acoustic. It's like pre-analog.
Yeah. So the medieval. He's got the monk representing that era, doing the choral singing.
Yeah. So they're.
Plus, obviously, he's merging it all into a cartoon.
Yep.
Context.
A cartoon like Finnegan's Wake. McLuhan said Finnegan's Wake was a cartoon.
Yeah, or it could have been just as easily done as a Bruce Bickford claymation video.
Yeah.
So, to conclude the production in a way that allows football god to have a tiny nose and live happily ever after, we propose...
Now, tiny nose, it's a pun on tiny note.
Yeah.
Okay. Tiny nose. He wants to have a tiny nose so he doesn't appear to be lying?
No. To have a tiny nose and live happily ever after.
Yeah, he wants to have a tiny nose. He doesn't want the stigma of being a liar.
Yeah, but he's also saying to have a tiny nose and live happily ever after. And you said tiny note. So to have a tiny note and live happily ever after.
Okay, no, forget the tiny note thing.
Okay.
You're saying he will live happily ever after with a tiny nose, right?
To conclude the production in a way that allows football god to have a tiny nose and live happily ever after, comma, we propose, as soon as the Italian national team is selected, a rock video is made.
Okay, hold it. Okay, hold it. So he's saying to resolve the lying god, to get rid of the lying god and get him back to being well-adjusted or something, or healthy, or spiritually in tune, or ecologically aligned. He's calling that, getting back to a tiny nose and not having to have to lie.
Yeah.
So lead into what you said again.
Okay. We propose, as soon as the Italian national team is selected, a rock video is made in the style of the Super Bowl Shuffle, using the players in uniform to render an Anglo-Italian rap version of Michael Jackson's I'm Bad. Okay,
listen to this. In the end of the Cletus Aretas story on Grand Wazoo.
Yeah.
Okay. If you read that story, it ends with a bunch of the warring guys get up, or 5,000 singers are doing something, and they all get up and perform a shuffle.
Oh.
I think that's how it ends.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? Who's going to perform a shuffle?
The Italian national soccer team.
Okay, read the sentence.
Okay. To conclude the production in a way that allows football god to have a tiny nose and live happily ever after, we propose, as soon as the Italian national team is selected, a rock video is made in the style of the Super Bowl Shuffle, using the players in uniform to render an Anglo-Italian rap version of Michael Jackson's I'm Bad.
Okay, so he has to be, you make this video about being bad so that the guy can stop lying. That's the opposites feeding on themselves. I mean, if you think of having...
Isn't that him confessing? He's basically confessing. God is confessing, saying, I'm bad. Because he's been lying all along, and now he's saying, I'm bad.
Right. So in order to have him have a tiny nose, he confesses.
Yeah, but isn't that typical? Look at Bill Clinton. He did something, with Monica Lewinsky, and then it wasn't until he came out in public and said, okay, I'm bad, I did. He had a bit of a confession, not completely, but a little bit, that he kind of got over the hump. In the Android meme, you have to confess. You have to give a little bit of quarter.
That's right. Yeah, so you're saying Zappa might be perceiving that pattern, that for God to get balanced again, he's going to have to, he's not going to come out and speak. He's going to make a virtual rock video. The extension is it's an Android meme extension that does it.
It's the new form, it's the updated form of Catholic confession.
Yeah.
Is in the Android meme, you have to come out and say it with an MTV video, you know?
Yeah.
So it has to be fun. It has to be fun and cool for people with the short attention span.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this will be made into an instant hit by all Italian radio and television stations. Which is easy to do in Italy because they're all on payola. So at the end of the opera, football god sings, and it's in capitals, his hit. So that's what they're changing the name to. It's his hit.
Yeah, he's showing. This is what?
He's showing what?
No, you started to say this is.
I was continuing reading.
Oh, okay. This is the Android meme to make a confessional has all this media artifactual apparatus in its confession.
Yeah.
And music is the religion, and you have to sing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, okay, at the end of the opera, the football god sings his hit, and that's his hit capitalized to make it holy or something, assisted by the monks, who turn out to be the Italian national team in disguise. Yeah.
Yeah, in sport as a religion, you've got to, chuck 6 months of your life and go work in a boot camp of training rigorously and being in shape for the weekly game. It's a modern form of kinetic monkhood.
Yeah, exactly. Physique and everything.
Yeah.
So
it's the chemical body as sacred vessel.
Right.
Not the words, not the medieval confessional of words. It's the chemical body and its game reality and its obsolescence and all that is the medium of confession, an update of the guilt syndrome.
Yeah. And so, by singing, I'm bad, you know it, God's nose shrivels to Jacksonian proportions, and he dances away.
And that's the end, right?
That's the end of that's the quote from Zappa, so it's the end of that quote.
And that's everything.
Then there's notes from someone who edited this page. They just say, Dio Fa, the logo for the opera itself, as it would appear on posters and advertising, was to be licensed to a mysterious Soviet clothing designer who plans to unveil the new line of Soviet fashions via satellite during the most dramatic part of the opera. Yeah, you're continuing to read it. It's not Zappa, but this is more of the story. Yeah, this is more of the story. I was telling you that was the end of the Zappa quote part of it. Right, I'm looking at it. This is Zappa. So now, who is saying the rest? Is Dio Fa, the logo for the opera itself, as it would appear on posters and advertising, was to be licensed as part of the opera plot to a mysterious Soviet clothing designer who plans to unveil the new line of Soviet fashions via satellite during the most dramatic part of the opera. That, we assume, is going to happen? That's what this is part of the opera description? I think they're paraphrasing from the book. So they included the big quote from Zappa from the book that gives you most. And then they're adding the other stuff. Yeah, because you don't have the book. But see, he was right then in 1990, 91 working to promote Soviet business. So he's describing what he's doing. Yeah. Okay. He was going over and encouraging somehow Soviet capitalism so that they wouldn't go back to communism. And after a few years... Yeah, that was part of his business. What was his business card at that time? Why not? Why not, yeah. Why not? And he says in his interview with Frank Zappa in 67 for Jazz and Pop, he says something like, I've got all these talents, why not use them? Now that goes back to our theme about being a classical composer. He's smart enough to see how stupid the whole fucking media swill is. He's intuiting the Android meme will abuse you. And he's saying, well, I've got these talents, why should I do it? Well, fuck it, I'll do it just the hell of it. Why not? It's expressed right there. Because, you see a lot of kids more and more in the generations. They're paralyzed for a few years in their late teens, early 20s trying to figure out what to do because there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to fit yourself. Mm-hmm. And you see kids, they might commit suicide. They go through all kinds of stuff
to get out of that dilemma. Well, Frank, being a smart kid in a simpler time, he saw the nothingness of everything.
But at the end there, from the late 80s to the 90s, he was doing all that business with Russia and Eastern Europe, and he was really embraced over there because it was almost like, since they didn't even have like a first world managerial society, they actually had attention to give to him for these new ideas.
That's right.
Weren't necessarily profitable ideas, but they were cool ideas.
Yeah, he was being a Tetrite manager, going over there and helping that newly freed country, supposedly. But it's 1989, 90, 91. It's only a 3-year period because he's got cancer in 91.
Yeah.
He probably
James,
drops to... What?
Wasn't it James Baker who sent him a letter saying, or sent the Prime Minister...
Yeah, that's in January 90.
Letter.
That's in January 90. You see...
You're either doing business with Zappa or the U.S.
Okay, did I ever tell you my pattern that these media archetypes die within 2 years of me interacting with them?
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
Right. So Zappa, we doing the interview in October 88, and he wants to put it out as an album. It's in early 89. A few months later, his biography is coming out. I think he goes around the stores in the spring of 89, does the book tour. And then either before that or same time, he's over to Russia. And the wall hasn't gone down yet, but he's seeing what's going on, and he gets excited about it.
Yeah.
So then he flies back over there in January 90, a year later, and he's been named by the cultural guy, and he's been named cultural ambassador to the United States by...
Minister for Culture and Arts.
Yeah, what's the name of the president who was a writer and all?
He was really good friends with Zappa as well. I forget the name.
Yeah, and I mean that was the Plastic People band back in the 70s. They were the underground in Prague, and I think he was in jail.
It was in Václav Havel.
Yeah, he was in jail in 76 in that period. Okay, so Havel names him. And Baker's flying around over there and hears it and drops in and tells him, hey, cancel that. So Zappa, he conceives very quickly. He says, I don't want to screw up your economy, so don't let me get in the way. And so he's really active from 89 into 90. And I don't know, he might back off of that within 6 months because he's not, he's actually going back to not doing Czechoslovakia. He's back into Russia and doing stuff over there. This is what he's describing here. He's describing himself, right?
Yeah. And the next sentence is written by whoever pulled this out of the Zappa book. Or maybe this isn't pulled from the Zappa book. Maybe this is from the news later on. But he says Zappa would attempt to make an actual licensing and manufacturing deal with the Soviets for real clothes to be offered worldwide under the Dio Fa label. With the garments making their day. Yeah.
With the garments making their debut as part of a choreographed fashion show. Remember I was telling you that in the middle of the play, Quadrophenia shows the business operations, the side effects, the byproducts, the bling that must be done eventually, and he just makes it part of the simultaneous pageantry.
Well, he's about 18 years ahead of his time, because that's kind of what goes on now with Web 2.0, where you'll have a live performance like the Beijing Olympics, and they're showing the ceremonies, and there'll be ads that are on camera that are included, and those ads will also be in the person's web browser next to the video that they're watching streaming live. So they can actually, as these new products are shown, they have the ability to actually click on a link and go and buy them from another website, in real time. So it's not only a performance, but it's also a fashion show, and it's a store, and all at once. And it's a factory for making a hit music single, and it's just all these things happening at once.
Right, and it's almost like that ridiculous simultaneous marketing of the Chinese Olympics. The Android meme couldn't take it anymore and collapsed a month later, September 2000. It just couldn't. This ridiculous marketing of itself, hyperactivity of itself, marketing to itself, and Chemical Body just sitting on the sidelines wondering when it's going to end. I get
that. That was the big thing, like, because I've been in Vancouver now, like leading up to the Winter Olympics in Vancouver for a few years. So this whole Olympic thing was floating around in my mind. And then when Beijing Olympics happened and I saw it and I thought, okay, it's great the whole world is gotten together to create this big party. But if we're all putting the party on, who the hell is watching it, you know?
Yeah. Well, what? Well, no, a lot of people are watching.
I wasn't the only one saying that, though. There were a lot of people walking around going, who are we putting on this show for? Us Earthlings. Putting this big show, the whole world is getting together and putting on this insanely huge, fabulous production. But who are we putting on? We're just putting ourselves on, basically. We're doing it for ourselves. And around the Beijing Olympics is when
McLuhan said that with respect to advertising, that when like Ford or a big auto company would pour millions of dollars into advertising, they were trying to reach the people who'd already bought the product to congratulate them on what a good job they did.
No, the ad was to define to them how to enjoy what they bought.
Yeah, well, okay, but it's also a pat on the back for making a good decision.
Who's patting who?
A lot of advertising is.
Scott, who's patting who?
The manufacturer of the product is congratulating the people who've already bought it on what a good decision they made.
Yeah. But didn't McLuhan say that? The only people who read the look at the advertisements are people who already own the product.
Yeah, that is it's on Furry Lint, that excerpt. McLuhan's talking about it, and he mentions Tony Schwartz around that part. The guy who does the book Media, The Secondhand God. So the point is that the advertising. That's why the Android meme starts in 1960. By the late 60s when he's talking about this. The Android meme is talking to his constituents to describe what it's for, and it's the propaganda. It's the classroom without walls. So the person he buys the product and he doesn't know why he has it, gets it by default to put it in ion terms, and then he has to read the ads to find out what he should think about what he has. Now,
or it's like a plan on how to deal with the thing you just bought, is to give you an image of how to look in it.
But here's the subtle part. It's no longer the hot sell, mind control, convincing people to buy stuff through your propaganda. That's before World War II. After that, these environments are given. Everybody's addicted to using them, so advertising just becomes an art gallery, giving you pictures, so to speak, to appreciate your environment. They're not trying to sell it. It's called going from the hard sell to the soft sell. It's just reinforcing. There's no effort required anymore. Everybody's going to buy the shit anyways because they have to. So advertising no longer is trying to mind control you. It's like McLuhan said, Madison Avenue couldn't condition a mouse. Well, they weren't interested in conditioning people anymore.
I see a lot of ads that are so stupid. The only reason I can conceive of that they are putting money into these ads at all is to prop up the morale of the employees who work there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like with Dio Fa, maybe Zappa started to realize what would happen if you did something like the Beijing Olympic ceremony, where you have something that's just so big. It's almost like the people can't handle seeing something that big, or they can't handle looking at a collective work of that size and scale, which would reveal the superstructure of the Android meme or whatever, right? So they can't handle it, and it puts them into a form of, recession. Not just financial recession, but just
McLuhan said in 1970 that he said a big depression's coming, and he didn't. He did, and that's the bland out, depressing early 70s.
But it's a realization, which I heard people actually expressing verbally in Vancouver after the Beijing Olympics, is like, well, what are the point of these giant global ceremonies that we put on? Like we're putting ourselves on. There's no audience.
But wait a minute.
They're like, what are we working for, basically?
Yeah, McLuhan always said there's no audience in the global theater. Everybody's an actor. But that a lot of people would look at the TVs a little bit. There's technically a lot of audience for it. What's interesting is why these people think there is no audience. What is the effect that makes them think that there is a big audience? Why do they think there's no audience?
No, it's not that they think there's no audience. It's that they're saying, who are we're putting ourselves on with this event.
No, do the first part. They're saying, who's this for? Well, it's the audience. Why are they thinking it's not for anybody?
Because they feel like it's not talking to their specific preferences of products or entertainment or whatever. It's like if I turn on a show that has senior citizens talking about clothing, it's like, well, that doesn't necessarily interest me, you know?
Okay, so you're saying there's an identity crisis for the user who's the content. Which user?
Yeah, because they see this event that's supposed to represent the whole world, right? And they're not included in it.
Well, they can't see what is something targeted to what their sensory or psychological
because it doesn't match their chemical body. They see these things on the screen that are supposed to represent the world today, okay?
Right.
And now that's going on, and they don't see themselves represented in it. They see Olympians. Right. Yeah.
And it's their rear view mirror. They're not any smarter if they say that, or more cynical or more perceptive. They just don't know that the Android meme is celebrating itself. That's what they should know. And they shouldn't have the question, well, it's not for us, it's for the machines having the Olympics for themselves. And advertising is the bloodline, the blood flowing through all of it. And advertising just reminding the machines where they're at. Now, what is the machines? Well, we can use the word machinic, because it's the technology talking to its parts. And what the hell's that mean?
It also depends on the broadcast. I've started watching sports a little more recently and noticed that people who are into the game of sports and keep track of that, they actually have a real interest in watching the basketball or the football. It's the religion. They're not watching it as
it's a religion. It gives them meaning about the tensions in their lives.
Yeah, I've never been totally clear as to why people become have an allegiance to one particular team or another, especially when teams are composed of players who have been bought and sold from so many different cities that they don't actually make any.
They're
community.
Identifying with the collective consensus of the city they think they're part of. There is no city on a community level, but there is community on the Sunday when everybody's sharing cheering for the team.
Yeah, but the games are interesting to watch. There is actually real dynamics, real competition, real talent.
Look at football.
Legitimate reason for watching.
Yeah, because look, football is all about the CIA and the KGB. You got one team, they huddle, they got a secret plan, they're going to distribute in the media a fucking fake situation. That's the setup. And then they they create a secret play. It's all about the information society and one team deceiving the other team. That goes on between corporations and intelligence agencies and all levels. So the football is the best thing to describe a society where everybody's engaged in espionage and secrecy is a way to make money. You see, it's right there.
But there's real talent and real physicality at stake. I mean, these guys are getting injured out there. They're pushing the envelope.
That's the abuse value. That's the abuse value that the Android beam runs on. Not symbolic exchange value or use value or surplus value. It's abuse value. Who can take the torture? And McLuhan writes about that in Take Today.
Yeah, that's a meta way to look at it. But there's also real human skill, being demonstrated on the field.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, why not? You have the chemical body doing its part. It's 1/4 of the process or 1/5. Mm. So what's your point if you point out that they're doing well? What does that tell us?
Well, I can take a thrill over watching a really good play being executed on the field, and you go, "Oh my God, I can't believe what that guy just did."
Yeah. Okay, so that's inspiring people. That's religion's old role. Seeing human bodies do excellent things inspires the spectator. That's the religious aspect.
Yeah, but no, there's real talent and effort and strength.
Well, we're not saying there's no
on.
fucking talent. Well, why? We know there's good. You have to be a genius to get there.
No, I'm just saying that you can appreciate when someone becomes excellent at something. There is a level of appreciation you can take in observing that the talent that went into.
Yeah, so you observe it. It's a little sensory impulse. So what do you do with that? Does that get you to work the next day?
I don't know.
Yeah, it gets you to work next day, but it doesn't last, and you got to do something else that night. McLuhan said back in the 50s, we're now all forced to be hydraulic jacks. So what's a hydraulic jack? This thing is pumping up something. We're all helping to pump up the world, and as he said, the super audience, like the super enterprise, works for itself.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Well, to get good at anything, requires.
Monkeys discipline.
You can appreciate the effort that
requires monkeys
discipline. Good at anything.
It requires my statement's more important than yours, so you shut up. It requires monkeys discipline.
A monkey's discipline?
No, monkish. You were just talking about discipline.
Oh, monkish. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the no real. You started to say something like it's training, or what were you saying?
Well, okay, let's put it into another context, which you might appreciate more. You watch a guy dropping down on a 40-fucking-foot wave that he's been towed into, and you can't fucking believe your eyes, man. You go, holy shit! Look what that guy's doing. There's a natural appreciation.
It lasts about 3 minutes, and then you're on to something else.
Yeah.
You switch over and you watch somebody skiing, you appreciate that guy. I mean, people could sit there all day long appreciating 1,000 fucking things on the sports channel.
Yeah.
Okay, so where does that leave you? Think of it. There are sports channels, right?
Oh, for sure.
So you're looking at amazing shit all day long. It's what McLuhan called the cognitive thrills of pattern recognition brought in by the instant replay.
Well, I remember when John Lilly when he came up with his 10 commandments, the first one was, thou shalt not bore, B-O-R-E, thou shalt not bore God, So you take an interest when somebody's doing something exceptional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what's funny is information overload. There's 1 million people doing it on the TV every day. Who's it for? See, it gets too much. Who's it for? Well, I guess it's for you if you happen to be watching it.
But the next question after the who's it for, to me, is more interesting. It's this feeling, this new emotion that I saw people expressing, which is, why are we putting ourselves on?
Yeah. In other words, an unintended consequence of the whole thing is turned into an avant-garde artistic enterprise that made people become philosophical. See, and Dave Neufeld wrote this today. This is exactly the issue. So he listened to Who's Forgotten Furland Part 2, which is called Hand Signals for the Blind, which features all his music made in 1988. This is the famous Dave Neufeld, back when he was a nobody. And we didn't use other people's music. And he says, the resonance of celebrity also resonates with the primal need of humans and most mammals for acceptance and welcoming into the fold. The drama of being welcomed or accepted or cast out of the fold, be it family, tribe, religion, membership, workplace, etc., and all its pursuant benefits or deprivations, is a powerful hidden ground being played out in the content of advertising. The celebrities are stars that have throngs of people who adore them as icons, or like a form of nobility that has access to the same lifestyle as the ruling blood class. Tom Hanks, and then he just says, Tom Hanks keeps it real. Well, I think you've touched on the resonance of whatever. People go, whatever? Now, look what he's going to say. It's a very sophisticated thing. Well, I think you've touched on the resonance of whatever or not caring. Under this hyper level of sharing, involvement, outering, and retrieval, the very global theater that Frank's talking about, right? this hyper-level sharing, involvement, outering, and retrieval. Whatever is an inevitable physical defense mechanism, reestablishing a level of the permissible involvement. Our shared environments expressing themselves as forms over and over, up to the minute, by the minute, in the form of global theater. Whatever, and when you go whatever, expressed a few years back a form of media ecology. And it also demonstrates the tetratic principle in that huge involvement pushed to its extreme can flip to its opposite, huge detachment. That's what I'm saying the Vancouver people were saying to you, Chad. They were put into, unwittingly, a huge detachment. Saying, what the hell was it for? Not hypnotized by it. So then he says the whatever sounded a bit annoyed and brusque when he went, whatever. So a few moons back, it tended to be refined and reemerge more selectively with too much information. So it refined and responded to the situation, quote, of too much information. Again, more media ecology. He's talking about personal responses as a kind of media ecology, a balancing. So again, more media ecology being expressed in the popular lexicon, and how much content the user can process and emerge intact. I'll read that again. Again, more media ecology being expressed in the popular lexicon, and how much content the user can process and still emerge intact. Signed, Dave. That's pretty good and relates to what we're talking about. At least I see it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to finish this up because there's some cool stuff at the end of the description of Dio Fa.
No, good.
Yeah. So we already talked about the actual licensing and manufacturing for the real clothes. And then the next paragraph is, other characters include Galileo, Tesla, Newton, Da Vinci, Mussolini, Hitler, Stalin, and Elvis Presley as the devil.
Aren't they all as the devil?
Oh, yeah, you could read it that way.
Yeah. So you've got early printed press effect. Who's the pop star of the early printed press? The new scientist, Galileo. Then you would put Newton in there. Then in the electric age, the new kind of science icon is Tesla. In the art world, you got Da Vinci. Then you got the political icons, Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. They're made possible by radio.
Right.
Right? And then Elvis Presley's TV. He's actually got Bob's chart, the different phases here. Elvis Presley is in the chart. And they're all the secular humanist school of guys, being God, but seen by the church as the devil.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good media ecology there by Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
I tell you, what we're saying should be broadcast in all Zappa fan clubs because they've never heard this talk before.
Yeah, for sure.
So Great Britain was to be represented by dancers dressed as football hooligans. So he's bringing in, the football battles among the fans. Misinterpreting signals from the Queen. A waving mechanical cardboard arm viewed through the window of a passing car. That's great. It's a very passing thing. The leader's just a fucking image in a card you just saw for a couple minutes and then that's it, right?
Yeah. And now here comes the cool part. Here comes the ionic part of it. America was to be represented by a group of tourists who line up at a phone booth with a sign on it that reads, "Talk to God." Each one would get to ask a single question. The all-important questions are: 1, did I wake you up? 2, what time is it there? 3, how much is that in dollars? 4, is that a castle or what? 5, what's the weather like there? 6, when are you coming to America?
Perfect. There's the phatic level in there.
Separation.
Yeah. Yeah, like it is it's pretty close to the 6 what, how, well, what, when. He hasn't got all the W's in there. He's got how, what, and when. So he's missing where. Is that a castle or what? Maybe. And what's the weather like there? Could be a where. When. Well, that's what time is it there? But that's a what. So that is, I'm glad I brought up the Dio Fa. It's just serendipitous. So just fucking now we can move into ion. I mean, this is actually fucking ionic. You're right. You just discovered that when you first read this, right? 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, not 6 years ago when I read the Frank Zappa book.
No, I don't remember this part. It might be in there, but I haven't looked at the book and Jesus.
No, I remember it. I remember it
this
from
much
the book.
detail.
What?
I've got the PDF here. I'll have a look.
Yeah.
Okay, you're saying, what did you say? You read the book, you said, Jed?
I said I have a vague remembrance of seeing it in the book. Maybe a little diagram. The little, in the book they have the diagrams, the black and white drawings.
So you kind of remember...
I have a bunch of people lined up in front of a phone booth, but maybe that's not from the book. I don't know. But
you have a vague image of these questions.
Yeah.
So look, that's the weekly cash flow. Talk to God, call up Ion, and a lot of the questions are silly like that, but you could actually, let's look at them as very profound questions, all right? Disguised as phatic surface stuff. In Finnegan's Wake, and in this world where we are now, maybe I haven't seen it, but the Inception movie might go into it, nobody can tell who's awake and who's dreaming. Okay? That's the virtual reality. That's why I say, the Morpheus generation, I say, we're here to drive you to sleep, not wake you up. Might as well accept the fact you won't be able to tell whether you're awake or not. And we're saying that on cash flow. People don't sleep. They're just moving from world to world. So did I wake you up? That's Finnegan's Wake. That's a deep question. Did we actually get somewheres, right? What time is it there is Zappa's question. What time is it? That's always his issue. How much is that in dollars? That's the rule of visual space. Is that a castle or what? That's appropriate to you, Chad. Right? The search for the castle. You can even say there's a little nod to Chad. It's like Ion doing a rant, and he says, "Did you get that, Brian?" And then he carries on doing the general rant, right? He singles someone out. Is that a castle or what? Well, is the Illuminati, the Bilderbergers, are they in some ivory tower? Are they in some kind of castle, or do they rule by being directly involved? Like I say, the Satire manager is. Is the castle, traditional castle of authority, does not look like a castle.
Right.
So what's the weather like there? Is that a hot or cold medium? What's the weather like there? That's obviously a phatic statement, but also when you're monitoring any business, you got to be in touch with all over the world how your markets are doing, and you need to know what's going on. Are they buying a lot? Is it hot or is it cool? So that's a Satire manager question. When are you coming to America? America is the promised land, and this is in Europe. And all this. When are you coming to America? When is the second coming? When is the? And he does a whole bunch of stuff about going through customs, and the Yellow Shark people. They do a whole skit reading the words you have to read, the thing you have to sign when you enter America. You have to say you're not a terrorist. Remember that part of Yellow Shark?
Yeah. Welcome to America. Yeah.
Right. When are you coming to America?
This number 6 is also kind of pointing to Revelations, right? Because it's like, when are you coming? Second coming. When are you coming back to America? Back to Earth? When are you going to return back to Earth? Yeah. When are we going to land in the virtual floating?
What about the song title "America Drinks and Goes Home"?
Right. So America drinks and goes home. When are you coming to America? When are you coming to the bar?
You can't stay here. Or what is that thing Ian says? You can't stay.
Yeah, the bar is closed. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah.
So that's funny. I just saw that line earlier this evening in the TV show The Wire. They actually said that. But
what did they say, Scott? What did they say, Scott? Say it.
Some guy was, the bar was closing. The guy was stoned out of his mind, and they told him, "Look, you can't stay. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here."
Oh, is that right? They said that line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think Zappa? What is the yellow shark? What the hell is that?
Have a listen.
See, we have Scott here to be the voice of the...
On.
What?
I was just going to confirm before we move on that the Dio Fa, what Scott read out, is all in Frank Zappa's book.
Oh, okay. So it's all from the book. Like it says Zappa would attempt. He says I would attempt in the book.
No, it's actually written third person.
So there's a quote, and then so it's almost like the whole thing is a proposal.
Yeah, it's a proposal, and it's not quoted, so it's written as a proposal. Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Did you you remember the part where he visits the Rothschild to get some money? You remember that part of the book?
Yeah.
I think that was another failure. But what did Scott say? I wanted to finish.
Well, there was a theme that Zappa hit on, which was the mud shark, and then he does this
yellow shark.
Yellow
really
shark.
Good. I hadn't thought of that. The mud shark. But Scott, what were you saying? We were. Oh yeah, I wanted to say that we have Scott here in the cast here of this show. He represents the voice of the little man. Like, what the fuck? What the hell is? But then the little man comes up with the pattern. Oh, the mud shark. Yeah, very good, Scott.
Yeah.
Very good. Yes.